How will the Louisville Cardinals address the front court?
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what's going on, everyone? Welcome into this Tuesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. This is my fifth year covering the University of Louisville, third year hosting this show, and I want to take the time to personally thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, the Locked On Louisville podcast is free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week. Your team every day. Today's episode of the show is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. It was an eventful week last week for the Louisville Cardinals in the portal, getting three stellar guards to fill out the Cardinals' backcourt. Now we're sort of in the hurry up and wait approach to see what happens in the Louisville frontcourt. The main discussion right now is centered around Nate Ament and Kasean Pryor. We'll discuss the pros to adding both of those players and also what the holdup might be. We'll dive into the weekly mailbag, some great questions that you all have asked. Definitely appreciate you all submitting those. 6 questions in total, 3 per segment regarding next year's team and what the main needs are overall. So like I said, we had a great week last week. Wow, what an eventful week it was. Adrian Woolley committed on Monday, Ryan Conwell committed on Tuesday, and then Isaac McNeely on Thursday. It was a wild week. Pat Kelsey brought in not 1, not 2, but 3 top 15 transfers to the Cardinals backcourt, and combine that haul with Michael Brown Jr. and Colby Rogers, you're looking at maybe the best backcourt in college basketball. Pat Kelsey showed that he's all in. But that's not the only thing that needs addressing, because Louisville still needs to bolster the front court. The main conversation right now is what Louisville is going to do at the 4. It seems like right now there are 2 options, Nate Ament or Kasean Pryor. If you're wondering what the updates are on Nate Ament, the correct answer is yes, indeed. That's right. Well, what is it? Totally. Couldn't agree more. Like, what? And he's like, yeah, it's confusing because that's where we are at the moment. I'm not really trying to call anyone out, and that's not the objective of what I'm about to say, but truthfully, if anyone is out there telling you what they proclaim as inside information on this recruitment, there's a good chance that they're guessing. Because right now, it seems like Ament and his camp are keeping things extremely close to chest. They're telling all parties involved what they want to hear to try to drive up that NIL price. I know a lot of Louisville fans believe it to be exhausting at the moment. And this is sort of the logical thing for me. But it wouldn't surprise me if the Louisville coaching staff, in fear of losing a guy like Kasean Pryor or losing other top forward options in the portal, if they go to Nate Ament and say, look, this is our offer, they might even bump it up a little bit and say, you know what, here's our offer. You have until insert day here to commit. If you don't, we got to move forward. You give him an ultimatum to where you don't get caught, here in a couple weeks if he were to go elsewhere, but then you also don't have Pryor. Like, that's the big fear, is that you don't want to get caught waiting on Ament to where Pryor says, you know what, thanks, but I'm going to go ahead and leave. And then you don't get Nate Ament either. So I think that as patient as you can be due to a great week last week, I think that you're still up against the clock here. So no real focus, or I'm sorry, no real insight into when Ament's going to commit into whatever school. I think everyone's just guessing at this point. But who knows? Who knows when he's going to commit? And then I think that Louisville's waiting to see what they need to do with Kasean Pryor based upon what Nate Ament does. That's just my intuition, what the logic will tell you. It's not based on any inside information, but there are pros to bringing in either one of these players. For those that are in the camp of why not both, is it possible? Yes. Is it probable? Not quite. I think it's a pipe dream. I think that bringing in both of these guys sounds great, looks good on paper, sends a message to the rest of the country. But number one, I'm not sure if it is, financially an option. I don't know if it's viable in that regard, but I think more importantly, you already pretty much committed to playing 3-guard lineups because the 3 guards you brought in with Michael Brown Jr. Do you think that you can also convince Nate Ament and Kasean Pryor to join this team and compete for those minutes, and potentially Javon Hadley? And I think Hadley's going to come back. There's no information on that yet. There's no announcement, but I would venture into predicting that he comes back. There's only so many minutes to go around, and you're sort of getting a little scarce at that 4 spot, because could you start Pryor and Ament next to each other at the 4 and the 5? I mean, maybe. You're kind of sacrificing a ton in terms of size in the front court, but it's a dynamic offensive lineup. But the goal here is to land one, and there are pros to each. You can say that landing Ament is better. You can say that landing Pryor is better. I'm not here to argue one or the other. I'm just saying get one of them here. In the case of Nate Ament, there's no arguing the talent and the upside. I mean, undeniable. He is one of the best NBA draft prospects in the class. I mean, he would raise Louisville's ceiling significantly, and you get a very dynamic offensive player that has 3-level scoring potential. 6'9", 6'10", can handle the ball like a guard, can create his own offense in the half court. Good at getting downhill. Now, he needs to add a little bit of weight, needs to add some more strength, which I believe that he would do in a college weight room before the season. Defensively, I think that there is a skill set that projects to be a decently high upside defender at the next level. With his length, with his shot blocking instincts, don't think he would be guarding traditional big men at the college level, more so guarding the wings, but I could see where he could be really disruptive playing that role. I mean, you're talking about a high upside guy. The only thing with Ament is that upside doesn't always mean immediate production. Yes, he has one of the highest ceilings in the class, and yes, he would raise Louisville's ceiling, but would that translate to immediate production? And I'm not so sure the answer to that, especially if you are going to be paying more for Ament than you would Pryor. You'd be paying a pretty penny for Nate Ament, and if the production really didn't match that, then you could be at a disadvantage in the front court. But the devil's advocate is if that he has a good season, leads you to success, and gets drafted high. Not this upcoming June, but the one following that, I think that that's a really good bit of recruiting upside and a surge in recruiting, and just some more players on the NBA level that can be an ambassador for your program. On the other hand, you have Kasean Pryor, and Kasean Pryor, he's coming off of that ACL injury, and that's the only thing that really kind of, I won't say worries me, but I'm intrigued by it, because it's never been easier with modern medicine to come back from an ACL tear. However, it's still not an easy injury to recover from. It is as tough mentally as it is physically for a player that, is known for being agile and versatile and can move laterally. Will he be able to have that same impact that he did before he got hurt last year? That's the main thing. I would venture into saying yes. Really good defender. I think that Kasean Pryor is the type of 4 that the Cardinals need. A guy that can stretch the floor. He's a mismatch on offense because of the 3-point shooting. Didn't really look good as a 3-point shooter last year, but nobody looked good for the first month and some change for the Cardinals. So I write that off and take it with a grain of salt. But the defensive versatility can be a rim protector at times, a guy that defends multiple positions out on the perimeter and brings that swagger, that enforcer level mentality, brings you that veteran presence. I choose to believe that even though he didn't contribute on the court all that much this season because of injury, I still think that he had a presence on the bench, being that veteran, that guy that people look to in times of leadership. And I think that bringing him back would be like bringing in a top portal forward, because let's call it how it is. If he were to enter the portal, he becomes one of the best fours available. I mean, he does. So to be able to get him back, it's sort of just an addition that you didn't really have all that much. I mean, I think that he's exactly what the doctor ordered. But honestly, I'm okay with either. I just don't think you're going to land both. Like, if you get one or the other, I think it's a huge success. You're probably looking to fill depth pieces at that point. And you're looking really good for 2025, 2026. But that also brings up some different questions as to how should Louisville fill out the roster? Do they need a rim protector? What if both Pryor and Hadley return? And many more questions that we will answer on the first part of the weekly mailbag on this Tuesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. There's nothing like the energy of a live game, whether it's catching a last-minute MLB showdown or soaking in the excitement of an NBA matchup. Finding great seats at a great price used to be a challenge until I found Gametime. Gametime makes scoring last-minute tickets easier than ever. Prices actually drop as the event gets closer and with their all-in price, and you see the total cost up front with no surprises at checkout. The peace of mind is what I love the most. With the seat views before you buy with no surprise fees and a lowest price guarantee, you can book with total confidence. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Cardinal fans, as I mentioned a couple days ago, March was the biggest month in terms of viewership in the history of the Locked On Louisville podcast, which was started in August of 2021. Definitely want to tell you all how much I appreciate you all for making us your first listen of the day, sharing, subscribing, commenting, letting me know your thoughts, and much more. Definitely doesn't go unnoticed. The Locked On Louisville podcast covers your Cardinals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, 5 days a week, your team every day. One thing that I really have enjoyed over the past month or so is how much the mailbags have gotten more popular. There have been more questions, and I want to take the time to answer those questions in two parts. The first one will feature 3 questions, and the second one also 3 questions. The first one is, does this team need a rim protector? Short answer is yes, they do. This team definitely needs a rim protector. I understand the argument that is, well, the 5 spot seems to be locked down with Sananda Frew, with James Scott, and with Ali Khalifa. And I get that. I think Sananda Frew is going to be much better than advertised. James Scott, I hope he takes another step forward. I think that Ali Khalifa is going to be a great asset to this team. But none of those 3 players I look at and think that they project to be a solid and feared rim protector. And I look at the Final Four, I look at the Elite 8, and I'm watching teams defend the rim pretty well. And even if it's just one player, I think that the Cardinals, the backcourt's going to be great offensively. Defensively, there are some question marks. So I think that you have to overcompensate with defense in the front court. If you bring in a guy like Kasean Pryor and maybe you bring Javon Hadley back, then you're getting some more perimeter defense. But what you lacked last year was a perimeter defender. I'm sorry, a rim protector, my apologies. And I think that maybe James Scott improves in that regard. I think he's got to add a little weight, but maybe Pat Kelsey and company look to him. But it wouldn't hurt if you use one of the final 6 remaining scholarships on a guy that maybe doesn't play 25 minutes a game, but you can use when you play larger teams that you need to protect the rim better. So what are the main needs for next year's roster? Well, I think that we kind of go back to the first segment. I think you need a dominant wing. And when I say wing, I mean more so of a 4, because it's going to be a lot of 3-guard lineups for the Cardinals, because you've got Michael Brown Jr. and you've got multiple players in the portal, Adrian Woolley, Ryan Conwell, and Isaac McNeely. So I think that you need to bolster the front court. You need to add defense, 3-point shooting, versatility, and athleticism. I think that Kasean Pryor checks off all of those boxes. And even if Kasean Pryor doesn't come back, or even if Nate Ament doesn't come in, then I think that there still are going to be portal options that you can go to that rebound well. I think rebounding and defense are the 2 main needs that you are looking for in a player at that 4 spot for the Cardinals moving forward. So next question, what if Kasean Pryor and Javon Hadley both return? Like I mentioned, no inside information here, but my intuition is telling me that Javon Hadley is going to be back. Now, the good thing is that you don't have to play him upwards of like 34 minutes a night like you did last year, to where you can keep him fresh. I don't think he's going to be a starter right away, but I do think he's going to be a key piece, like a 6th man off the bench that you can plug in to be that physical enforcer, because you look at the teams that are still playing in the NCAA tournament. Well, actually, the tournament's over by the time you all listen to this at midnight on Tuesday morning, but you've got really quality depth guys, because it's not just your starting lineup. It's what do those 6 through 10 spots on your bench look like? And if Javon Hadley's one of those guys, then, man, you have a really, really potent team that could make a run and make some noise next year. If Pryor and Hadley both return, I think that you have delivered a pretty obvious check mark in the 4 box. Bringing Pryor and Hadley back, you've got that veteran leadership. You've got experience within the system. You've got guys that have played a ton of college basketball and guys that have played it at the ACC level, Power 5 level, and that's awesome. But I think that the question's more so regarding how do you address the remainder of the roster? And I think that that's a really good question, because at that point, you have 9 total scholarship players at the moment. Let's say Pryor and Hadley are both back. That puts you at 11. So you've got 4 spots, and you're not going to play all 15 players. 11 might be the full extent of your rotation. So I'm not sure if adding another like star level guy makes any sense, because there's only so many minutes to go around. I think that at that point, you're taking some flyers on some high upside guys, maybe for 2026, 2027. But unless you're projecting someone to leave, like let's say that Pryor and Hadley both come back, does that prompt someone to leave? I don't know. Does maybe Kenai Roots say, you know what, I'm going to go look at other options? Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. Of course, this is not really based upon any inside info. It's just intuition and trying to think of things logically, because on paper, it looks good to have so many options. But when you think about it from a human standpoint, you're thinking, well, how many minutes am I realistically going to get this year? Because you're playing 3 guards and you have some wings at the 4, and then you've got 3 options at the 5. I mean, there's only so many minutes. And look, I understand that Pat Kelsey substitutes a lot of guys in, injuries happen, etc. This is where Pat Kelsey and company are really going to earn the money that they make, because these are the tough decisions that they're forced with, just making the right choices on. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but that's where it's up to your head coach to make these decisions. So I really like these questions, and I would love that by the time, like this time next week, next Tuesday, I would love to get a Hadley announcement that he's back. I would love to get some more clarification on Nate Ament and Kasean Pryor, so we can sort of finalize this roster and really start to talk about what next year could look like. Because at the moment, where Louisville currently sits, this is a top 10 team. You add a couple more pieces, I mean, you're potential preseason top 5, and that's saying a lot, guys. I mean, we are 12 months removed from just begging to get back to the NCAA tournament, thinking, well, how long is it going to take Pat Kelsey to turn things around? Well, here we are, April 8th, and it's like, oh, okay. There you go, PK. There's some really interesting questions in the next segment in regards to who my dream choice would be to add to this team. And the answer might shock you, but all I'm asking is that you let me make my case. I'll tell you who it is when we come back on this final segment of this Tuesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. I'm going to continue to do that. It might seem a little repetitive, but I don't care. You know, Pat Kelsey says never delay gratitude, and I think that that's a great model to live by. So we're going to, you know, without shame, start to live by that motto. In terms of content for the rest of the week, we're sort of in wait and see approach. There's going to be some football talk because the spring game is on Friday. So we're starting to get into some off-season football talk, but we're just really in, like I said, hurry up and wait approach to see if there's going to be any portal news and such. So we'll discuss what becomes relevant at the time. But into the final part of the mailbag series, who would your top pick be if there was no option to add Pryor or Ament? So basically, if Pryor says thanks but no thanks, Nate Ament says thanks but no thanks, I've got an option. And let me clarify by saying that it seems like Pat Kelsey and company are pretty confident in the 5 spot. And I'm not suggesting that they shouldn't be. But for me, I'm pretty adamant that I feel like this team needs a rim protector. I think they need some size down low. I think they need a guy that can bang down low and rebound. And this is a player who was considering Louisville last year, was kind of a weird recruitment, went back and forth. I know he's going to cost a lot. I know he has an injury issue right now, but bring me Jaden Quaintance. Hear me out here. Hear me out. I know that he had the ACL surgery, and it's going to be before the early fall before he gets cleared. There is a risk there, especially considering how much it's probably going to cost to get him. I understand, but if you don't get Ament, you don't get Pryor, you're going to have a good NIL budget left. Jaden Quaintance fits everything you need. He has to come back to college because he's too young to go to the draft, or he probably would have been a top 10 NBA draft pick. Quaintance this past year, as one of the youngest players in college basketball, averaged 9.4 points a game, 7.9 rebounds on 53% shooting. Now, the three-point numbers, 19%, the free throw numbers, 48%, were not good. But considering how young he was, I think he's going to be able to take the next step forward. But more importantly, he fits what you need. He is one of the best shot blockers in the country, blocking about 2.6 shots per game, 1.1 steals per game, averaged 7.9 rebounds in just under 30 minutes a night. He was a really good rebounder, 6'9", has an over 7-foot wingspan, has the strength to be able to bang down low and rebound, and is able to move, up and down the court at a high rate inside of Pat Kelsey's system. You don't need him to be a guy who can step out and hit threes. And there's this whole discussion that, well, maybe Pat Kelsey's system doesn't call for a true rim protector. Well, if you want to compare Kelsey's system to Alabama, then the truth is that it does, because Alabama always has a rim protector. And I would love to have JQ on this team. I get it would cost a lot. I understand the injury issues, but he is a ceiling raiser. And guess what? If he has a successful season, he's probably going to be a top 10, maybe a top 5 pick in the draft, because he's going to still be a younger sophomore. So it looks good from a recruiting standpoint. I would love to bring JQ in. I would bring him in and not think twice, truthfully. So with 15 scholarships available, it is unlikely that Louisville plays all 15 players. Really good point there. Do you think that the Cardinals should keep the future in mind when adding to the roster? I think that it's a very good question because, again, you're not playing all 15. I just don't think it's plausible to do that. And no one is going to argue the contrary unless you just have an all-star roster and you just have to mega platoon, which I think could probably be more hurtful than helpful on the court. But anyways, I would like that if Louisville got 12 guys that can contribute right away, and then maybe you go to the international ranks and you get a young international player or two, or you get a high school player that is in the top 100 that decommits from a program. You don't know that they're going to play this year, but you best think that they could be better for 2026-27 to where you don't have to reload your roster all or every single year. Or maybe it's a reclassification where a guy comes to college a year early, learns the system, plays against these guys, and ultimately is ready to go in 2026, 2027. I'm perfectly okay with that because I don't want to have to rebuild the roster every year with, 8 to 9 new players. If you can get some sense of continuity with developing your recruits, especially on the international side of things, on the high school side, maybe take a transfer that is a younger player with multiple years of eligibility that is willing to come and learn for a year behind this roster and then be ready in the next season. I think that that's great. And I think that that's something that with 15 scholarships, it wouldn't surprise me to see teams start to do that. I think that it would make the most sense. Which player returning do you think needs to take the most significant step forward? Well, this is a question that there aren't that many options to consider. Even the players that are returning, 3 of them didn't play much. They either didn't play at all, Ali Khalifa or Kobe Rogers, or they only played 7 games in Kasean Pryor. I think it's between James Scott and Kenai Roots, and I'm going to go with James Scott because the potential's there. He was a younger sophomore. Had, I would say, a good season in terms of expectations, but he has to develop some more of an offensive game other than catching lobs. He has to become a better defender, especially on the interior. I thought that he defended the perimeter pretty decently, but he's got to gain some weight, add some strength, add some muscle, and defend the interior better. I think that if you can just develop some semblance of a post game, it would do wonders because at times it was like Louisville was playing 4-on-5 on offense because you could allow James Scott, despite him being a really good passer, you could allow him to play at the top of the key and just sag off and double the post because you know that he's not going to try to take the ball in. You know he's not going to take that shot, and you can sort of overcompensate for that and force Louisville into some tough spots. You saw it all at the end of the season. So I'm going to say James Scott here. I would also like to see Kenai Roots take a step forward to where he's more confident in that jump shot, more confident in the decision making, and just be able to improve better as a perimeter defender. I think he has all the tools to be really good. I just want him to be able to succeed in playing that role. But that is going to wrap up this episode of the show. Everyone have a great day. We'll see you right back here tomorrow. Go Cards.